Opa. Chekhov? Wow.
I really love stories about classic literature, especially if those stories are about the unsung heroes behind it. This is just one little anecdote about that. It wasn't easy to grow up in poverty in 19th century Russia for a young Robert Downey Jr. This is actually Anton Chekhov, and his family was a chaotic mess. He had to go start supporting them when he was a teenager. He also put himself through college and became a doctor. He was a very compassionate person, and so he would often in his practice give people just free medical treatment too, because he recognized things were so bad in Russia. At that same time, he was also starting to write. He was writing stories, just short little pieces for newspapers and magazines, but he wrote more and more, and they got better and better, and eventually he had amassed hundreds of stories and is now regarded as really one of the masters of 19th century short stories. Whoops. Forgot to do my other click right here. Here are some other pictures of him. So you can kind of see, right? Oh. So this is a guy who was a doctor, who was an author, money charming, talented, smart. He had movie star looks, as we've already determined, and was somewhat emotionally unavailable. You know the guy. Eventually made him take that. And right at the end, towards the end of his unfortunately really short life, he wrote 4 of the great masterpieces of early modern drama, particularly in the productions that were guided by Konstantin Stanislavski for the new Moscow Art Theater. Chekhov unfortunately died in 1904 at the age of 44 from tuberculosis, but I don't want to talk about him. I want to talk about his brother, Nikolai. The two of them grew up, and they were best friends throughout their childhood, trying to make their way in this really chaotic family. While Anton Chekhov was turned out to be the writer, Nikolai had a talent for drawing. And the picture that I showed you earlier right up there is one that Nikolai painted when Anton was a college student. And at that time, he hadn't written anything, but decided one day that he was going to write a play. So he went ahead and did that, and then he sent it off to the leading actress in Moscow. She took like one look at it and said, like, oh no, she hated it. He got mad, but Nikolai picked up the play and put it in a safety deposit box, but unfortunately it was missing the title page. Now, and then everyone forgot about it. So Anton Chekhov went on to become Anton Chekhov. Nikolai pursued his dreams, and he became a really distinguished painter. Unfortunately, though, he was also an alcoholic, and his drinking got worse and worse. Oftentimes he would go on binges. The family couldn't even find him. And I'm sorry to report that one night he was discovered frozen on the streets of Moscow one winter. He died at the age of 31. Anton lived 15 more years. He died. Everyone forgot about that safety deposit box. 19 years later, in 1923, they opened it up and they discovered this unpublished play by Anton Chekhov. Everyone got really excited about it. Then they read the play and they got less excited. It was obviously written by someone who hadn't done any writing and was unfamiliar with theater. The play, I'll just tell you, like, the characters don't make any sense. The plot is incomprehensible. And it's, if you perform the whole thing, it would probably be about 6 hours long. Act 1 is slightly longer than all of Uncle Vanya. Right? But it contains a whole bunch of the different sort of characters, tropes, themes, ideas that Chekhov would later perfect in his later plays. So people have gone after this play again and again to try to slice and dice it, make something out of it. And I have to admit that I did that too. These are production photos from an adaptation of his first play, Plekhanov, it's usually called, that we did at the University of Minnesota a number of years ago. And so my thank you tonight is not only to Anton, but especially to Nikolai. Thank you. I don't know what else was in the safety. Oh, what else was in the safety deposit box? Do not know. There was no gun in there. No. No Chekhov's gun. Yeah.
All right. Well, we got 9 more to get.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, all right, I'm rolling it again. Rolling rocks, come on down. Versus our third Jeremy of the night. Third.
Rolling ball. Whoa. All right. Perfect. Not a problem. All right, and welcome to the evolution of rolling rocks, the evolution actually of bowling balls. So, no one really knows when bowling started. There's some arguments, it was the ancient Egyptians, there's other people who actually say it was a German religious ceremony. Yet there are others that claim that it was very popular in about the 11th century in England. Regardless of when it occurred, people have been throwing heavy objects at pins for a very long time. So, how did it all start? What were bowling balls actually made of? Well, in the old days, bowling balls were made of natural items. We had stone, we had porcelain, and we had wood. By most opinions, wood was the most common. It was the easiest to work. However, there are some other ones out there that, of course, are very interesting. There is a 26-pound granite bowling ball that was apparently used for ceremonies. Nobody actually wants to see that thrown at anyone. But when bowling became popular in the United States, wood was really what was being used. And that was used up until the 1900s, when in 1905, we had the introduction of rubber bowling balls. Rubber bowling balls was the first evolution of bowling balls, and those were a cork core covered with a rubber surface, and essentially they were supposed to be the bowling ball to last you a lifetime. There were going to be no other bowling balls. They even came with a lifetime warranty. All you needed was one. Yep, you heard that right, Connie. One bowling ball. Okay? No, yeah, I know. Okay? And it was an amazing miracle compound. But, like evolution, things changed. In the 1950s, of course, we had the invention of plastic. So we started to get plastic bowling balls, and they became very popular. We had bowling balls of all different colors, and the professionals that were, again, at the lanes, they loved these. Why? Because you could modify them. Yes, if you took acetone to a plastic bowling ball, you could break that cover down and make it sticky, so it would roll a whole lot faster and hook a whole lot harder. So people actually really liked those plastic bowling balls. That led to a change. Of course, they had to make a rule on the hardest bowling balls. Okay, I know. So this is one of the most famous bowling balls. Yes, it does have 1 ounce of gold in it. So if you do see these golden bowling balls around, there is real gold in there. You might want to grab them. Okay. Then in 1981, we actually had another evolution of bowling balls. We started to get what's called urethane. Urethanes were a very popular bowling ball, but they were extremely expensive to make. In fact, in 1981, they were about $80 a piece, which is a very, very costly bowling ball, especially for those little sports that, again, most people aren't going to be putting a lot of money into. But it's still popular. The nice thing about urethane is they roll very, very easily, and they hook pretty consistently. So people like those. But we couldn't leave it well enough alone. Nope, we got to switch it up. So then, in the 90s, we actually took that urethane and we added resin to it. Now we've got reactive resin balls. Because not only do we have to make that urethane sticky, we want to make it hook harder. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to add these resins to it, and now we've got reactive resin balls. And a lot of the bowling balls today are made with this very thing. The cover stock is actually designed to grip the lanes and hook in right at the last moment. But guess what? We're not done evolving the bowling ball yet. We've got more. Okay? Most people don't know this, but most bowling balls have a core. It's not just a core of cork. In fact, a lot of bowling balls have weighted cores. The most common is a 3-piece core where it's just weighted on one side. But if we want to increase that ball reaction, we want to get it to snap in there right at the end, we're going to actually make that weight block so that it's weighted very heavily on one side, or we're going to make it asymmetrical. So when you throw that ball, it has a tendency to want to roll one way. Okay? So this is where we're at currently. So we started out with wooden bowling balls. We moved into rubber bowling balls. We've evolved into plastic. Now we've got urethane. We've got these reaction resin particle balls with these very unique cores. So what does the future hold? Well, new materials, of course. We're going to have new designs, new cores. And of course, we're going to have new rules because people will keep modifying them and seeing what they can get those balls to do and trying to increase those scores. 300. My favorite bowling ball because that's the only one I can get 300s with.
This one. Not a lot, but I played it.
Yes. No, bowling. Did bowling balls always have 3 holes? No, they did not always have 3 holes. Some had 2. And in fact, a very recent change by the Bowling Congress requires, yep, there is a Bowling Congress, okay? Yep, huh? No, they're actually not very old. Had to actually make a rule because of the fact that people were drilling out holes in their bowling balls to change the weight so that they would hook more. You now, when you're bowling, you must have a finger in each hole of your bowling ball, or it is considered an illegal bowling ball.
There's a 3.
I'm sorry, come chat with him, man. Right along. Woo, thank you, Jeremy. We were so leisurely at the beginning last year. We had so much extra time. All right, let's welcome Matt with his microplastics presentation. Yeah! I swear he's promised there's at least some happy things.
All right. Perfect. So as you can see from Katy Perry here, when you start talking about plastics, you might be reminded of a certain song of hers. Out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of and kind of know, at least on a rough level, what microplastics are? Okay, right, huge area. It's been making headlines a lot in the past couple years. Some people get really nervous about it. Some people are like, I don't even want to think about it. What is it? We're exposed to plastic. Why would we even worry about it? And exactly, so what exactly are microplastics? Well, they are really small, right? That's the definition of micro. And so they're less than 5 millimeters. For reference, that's, those small kind of little beads there. You can get higher than that, but those are generally larger. You're not going to be inhaling or getting those through water as much. They're easy to filter out. And so once we get down to the micro and smaller particles, that's where we have to worry about them kind of permeating the environment, getting in our food. The air is a big method of ingestion. And so microplastics specifically are smaller than 5 millimeters. Now, most of these microplastics come from breaking down of larger plastic. So plastic bag, gets in a landfill, misses the garbage, whatever. Once it's exposed to the sun and UV light, mechanical stress, just like wind, tearing, it breaks down into smaller and smaller particles. Now, eventually, it keeps getting broken down. They never fully biodegrade, except for some potential new materials. But eventually, these microplastics, they keep breaking down, and they become nanoplastics. And that's when they get less than 1 micrometer. And for reference, it's a little cut off here. Well, this is good. A particle of smoke is about 1 micrometer, which a laser pointer doesn't show up there. But it's smaller than a grain of salt, right? And so these are the ones that we actually have to be concerned about. Are microplastics fungible? No, actually. So these plastic particles are not interchangeable. Not all microplastics are made the same. And some actually are a lot more harmful than others. And so there's some that are included in like face wash or toothpaste, right? They include those little microbeads. While they might not be great, they generally are closer to that like 1 to 2 millimeter size, and they're nice and round. And that actually makes a really big difference. The ones that we actually should be most concerned about are the irregularly shaped microfibers that come off of clothing as well as the breakdown of plastics in the environment. So they get into these jagged, kind of rough shapes. I just like the names of these. Like some of them are called nurdles, nanofiber butts. Some of it's cut down on the bottom here. But yeah, some of them are just fun names. But you can see there's a lot of different types. And these secondary microplastics are some of the biggest concerns in the environment. And it's actually where 80% of the microplastics that accumulate in humans and wildlife come from. So very little are those primary like beauty products or specifically manufactured to be that size. Okay, so what's the depressing part of this? Should you be concerned? The answer is yes. So I was a cognitive neuroscientist. I studied the brain. The research is really, really just coming out, so we don't have strong answers. But everything kind of is pointing, every new study that comes out is basically like, this is kind of like cigarette smoke in the 70s, where everything's saying it's bad, we should be concerned. And that's kind of depressing, right? It's bad for your lungs, it accumulates there. It's bad for your brain. Nanoparticles, so once they get small enough, they pass the blood-brain barrier, and they start building up in the brain. It damages the cells, and it's bad for your circulatory system. So again, all really, really depressing, right? So depressing, it doesn't want to move on. There was actually a recent article that got a lot of press, basically saying there's a spoonful of plastic in your brain. Technically true, but it's based on weight, not size. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but Google a couple things, you'll see it. And so it's kind of like, great, this is really depressing, right? The good news is, almost all of our exposure is from indoor air. And luckily, there's a really cheap and effective solution. And so this is called a Corsi-Rosenthal box, invented by professors at UC Davis just a couple of years ago. It's basically duct taping some MERV 13 filters onto a box fan. And they are, this setup cost about $60. And it is 3 times as effective as like a $400 or $500 filter or air purifier off of Amazon. And so these are the solutions that you put in your house or in schools or the workplace, and they just get a ton of airflow.
So that's it. 5 minutes. We just started to enjoy this presentation.
Tire plastics are another major source of pollution. So the tires break down on the road, they get washed away, or they float up into the air. So yes, they account for about 15 to 20% of the plastics that we find. Yes. What about the mushrooms that eat plastic? I'm not sure about the mushrooms. I know there's new bacteria that come, so there's a lot of research and money going into finding things that will degrade these plastics. And there are some promising avenues. Nothing has been like a cure-all solution, but that's the benefit is this is a fixable issue. Plastic is big, we can get it at the source, or we can clean the air. So I think there are solutions, or we can start breaking it down in the oceans too.
Thank you very much, Matt. Working on his state senate campaign, which was inspired by my talk last year on getting involved in local government. Because we get a lot of old white people who own homes answering the surveys. Do surveys. Start with surveys. All right, come on down, Patrick.
Sure. Hi, my name is Patrick, and I'm going to be talking tonight about 2 of my favorite things, kissing and higher dimensional geometry. In particular, we're going to be talking about a thing called the kissing number. And you might be thinking, isn't that just how many people I've kissed? Well, you got to remember what Emily taught us back in April, is that math is so much more fun non-monogamously. So the kissing number is, if I were around and everybody else in the universe were around and we were all the same size, how many of them could kiss me at the same time? So in 2 dimensions, round things are discs. So the question here is, how many of the blue discs can you get to touch the yellow disc at the same time without picking any of them up off the page and without having any of them overlap? And in the interest of time, I'm going to spoil it for you. The answer is 6. 6 fit around perfectly with no wiggle room, so the kissing number in 2 dimensions is definitely 6. Now, in 3 dimensions, things are a little trickier. in 1690, Isaac Newton said the answer was 12. Another mathematician said, well, I think there's enough wiggle room there that you can fit 13. And nobody proved that Isaac Newton was the one who was right until 1954. So, now what if you had 4-dimensional balls or 5-dimensional? Okay, so what's a 4-dimensional ball, right? So we're going to take that problem 2 ways. First, algebraically, and then pictorially. Okay, so algebraically, a 2-dimensional ball is just all the points x, y with x squared plus y squared is less than or equal to the radius squared. And in a 3-dimensional ball is x squared plus y squared plus z squared is less than or equal to the radius squared. And so we can even take this back to 1 dimension and see that a 1-dimensional ball is just all the points x squared is less than or equal to r squared. And so that's all the points from minus r to plus r on the number line. And since we're stuck on a number line, or stuck on one line in 1 dimension, you can get 1 to touch it on the left and 1 to touch it on the right, and then you're out of space, no more wiggle room. So the kissing number in 1 dimension is 2. Now, it's easy to see how we're going to extend this to 4 dimensions, or to any number of dimensions. We're just going to take one variable for each dimension. We're going to square them all. We're going to add them all together. And if the answer is less than or equal to the radius squared, well, then that's part of our ball. Now, pictorially, if you take a 2-dimensional disc, or a 2-dimensional ball, and you cut it into slices, each slice is a 1-dimensional ball. And they start off small and get big really fast and start slowing down and start getting smaller and start getting small really fast until you run out of things to slice. And then the same thing happens in 3 dimensions, is that a 3-dimensional ball, the slices of it are 2-dimensional balls. And it happens in any number of dimensions that the slices of an n-dimensional ball are just n-1 dimensional balls. Now the top picture here is 5 slices of a 4-dimensional ball, and as you can see, each slice is a 3-dimensional ball. The picture below it is 5 slices of a 5-dimensional ball, and as you can see, each slice is a 4-dimensional ball. So now back to kissing numbers, okay? So we know the kissing number in 1 dimension, in 2 dimensions, because there's configurations with no wiggle room. We know the kissing number in 8 dimensions and 24 dimensions for the same reason. Where there's configurations, we know that with no wiggle room, and so we know that the answer is exactly there. In 3 dimensions, we know the answer is 12 because we proved that 12 fit and 13 can't. The same sort of thing is true in 4 dimensions, where we know that the 24 will fit, and though there's wiggle room, there's not enough wiggle room for 25. In all the other dimensions, we don't actually know the number. So for example, in 5 dimensions, we know that 40 will fit and 45 won't fit, but nobody knows if 41, 42, 43, or even 44 could fit. And so now looking at this chart, the next non-monogamous question that should be on your mind is, what's it like, Patrick, to be kissed by 240 people in 8 dimensions? Well, the top picture here is a selfie of that situation. And the bottom pictures aren't selfies, but this one is the 24 people kissing you in 4 dimensions and 12 people kissing you in 3 dimensions. So, if you like this, you should definitely join my meetup group, which is called Joyful Math. And this QR code will take you to these slides and my contact information. Get in touch with me if you, let's do some math. Or, maybe kiss. Thank you, Heather.
Question?
Why do you love math?
I do. It's just, I don't know, it's a playground for me. I don't know.
Moving right along here. Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be?
Few left. How many left?
Oh, come see Pet for Toys! And come on down, Aisha!
6 left.
Welcome! Round of applause.
Goncharov.
Good evening, ladies, gadies, and babies. I'm Aisha, and for my lightning talk, I'll be giving you a brief analysis of Chekhov 1973, a lost mafia movie. The music that's playing overhead, or it's not really playing, but It would be the main theme from the movie, and it took the internet by storm a few years ago, so if you know anything about it, I ask that you please don't spoil it for the people who don't. So, what is Goncharov? Goncharov is a 1973 mafia movie directed by Martin Scorsese, who you might know from films like Goodfellas and The Wolf of Wall Street. Goncharov stars Robert De Niro as the titular character, with Sybil Shepherd as the love interest, Al Pacino as his character foiled, and Harvey Keitel as the primary antagonist. The movie's premise is pretty straightforward. It is your typical Soviet-era mafia movie taking place in Naples, Italy, following Goncharov, a nightclub manager and Russian hitman who finds himself in a turf war with the main antagonist, Mario Ambrosini. At the same time, he must deal with Andrei Godano, a Russian who tried to break him down, plus navigate a tumultuous relationship with his estranged wife, Katya. While the storyline and tropes are typical of that genre and the 1970s, Goncharov stands out for its romantic overtones and the portrayals of mental illness and childhood trauma that can match the standards of representation today. Spoiler though, this is a tragic movie and most of them die in the end. First, let's take a look at what made this movie internet famous, which are the homoromantic subplots and themes. To start, there's the rivalry between Goncharov and Andrei. It's a messy enemies to lovers scenario where their pursuit of one another goes beyond their roles as a mafia don and an official. As the story progresses, they go from treating each other like a job to being more intimately invested. It's a tragic love-hate relationship because ultimately they could never coexist without sacrificing their own important personal values. Parallel to them, we have the relationship between Goncharov's wife Katya and Mario's sister Sofia. It's heavily implied that Katya, unsatisfied with her marriage, finds emotional fulfillment through a sapphic love affair with Sofia. This, too, is doomed to end badly when they are on opposite sides of enemy lines, but the writers do a fantastic job of treating the women as more than just collateral.
Good.
Overall, Goncharov brings not just queer representation that's progressive for its time, but raises the question of reconciling love and resentment when two people are so vastly different. Goncharov is also lauded for its secondary theme of mental illness stemming from childhood trauma, shown through the side character Joseph Morelli, better known as Ice Pick Joe. His story is that he was institutionalized for erratic behavior following his brother's death in childhood and was scheduled to be lobotomized. He broke out and landed a job as Mario's henchman, his ice pick a symbol of the institutional cruelty that disabled and mentally ill people faced back then. His arc culminates in letting himself be killed after he took the life of an innocent civilian. Whether it was self-destructive tendencies or show remorse is still debated. Though he takes backseat to the main characters, he makes the audience think about how redemption is defined in cases of severe mental illness. So why was this movie lost to time? Though Martin Scorsese was a household name by the 70s, Goncharov was met with resistance from his production company because of those themes I talked about earlier. It had very limited theatrical release and never got the DVDs or TV airtime like other movies did. A booth from the movie set posted online prompted people to uncover it, and the movie gained newfound appreciation from a 21st century audience. It sparked news articles, gained positive reviews from critics, and its combination of classic cinematography with progressive themes meshed with online fandom culture, inspiring memes, art, fan fiction, and cosplay. It's nostalgia interacting with the joy of rediscovery, essentially. So now you're probably dying for me to stop talking so you can run home and watch it yourself. So I'll just leave you with some concluding words. This movie doesn't exist.
Oh my god.
Which actually, didn't you do Mandela effect just last year? Alright, what questions do you have?
So was the internet sensation real? Yes, it's absolutely real. It was made up by the users on Tumblr collectively. Yes. Well, if I'd seen it, how many times would I have seen it? Probably like once a week, honestly. It's such a good movie.
Alright, we're getting down to the last few here, guys. Come on down, David! Oh, we slammed. Okay, alright, we're next for a treat.
This is cool.
All right, so I want to talk to you guys about the most exciting topic possible, units and measurement. We all know the metric system. Very simple, straightforward. 1 kilometer, 1,000 meters, 100,000 centimeters, easy to convert. Then there's the imperial units. Maybe a bit of a bad rap, but like 1 yard, 3 feet, 36 inches. Not the easiest metric, but not too bad. But there is an elephant in the room that I'm here to talk to you about today, which is the mile. 5,280 feet in a mile. What the fuck? Well, this starts as anything to do with the Romans. The mile was originally a Roman unit. Mile comes etymologically from the same roots as millimeter or millipede. It means 1,000, because a mile was 1,000 paces. The Roman pace was 2 steps, left foot, right foot, which they defined as about 5 feet. So the mile was 1,000 paces, or 5,000 Roman feet. Not powers of 10, but still pretty easy, straightforward numbers. The Roman mile is about 9.919 modern miles. A little bit off, but not too far. So, to really get to the bottom of what's wrong, we can go to a different place, which is Anglo-Saxon England. These people did much less traveling on paved roads, much more subsistence farming. So their primary unit was the field. The amount of land a yoke of oxen can plow in 1 day. We started off as a big unit, but eventually they defined it. It was 10 chains long, or 40 rods long, 1 chain wide, or 4 rods wide. 10 chains was 1 furlong, which means furrow length, because again, everything's about plowing. And of course, they didn't call it a field because they spoke Old English. They called it an acer, which became acre, because acre is just a field. 1 rod was 20 feet long, nice and round, which meant that 1 chain was 80 feet and an acre was 800 feet by 80 feet. Again, all relatively round numbers, not powers of 10, but these people were doing mental math, not on a piece of paper with Arabic numerals. So it makes sense, and it's not that bad. All this comes to an end in 1066, when the Normans conquer both England and the English system of weights and measurements. And you might think this is not a problem, because the Anglo-Saxons measured things in feet, the Normans measured things in feet, but the Norman foot and the Anglo-Saxon foot are not the same length. The modern foot is 12 modern inches long. The Norman foot was 11.65 modern inches long, pretty close. The Saxon foot was 9.9 modern inches long. So imagine you're William the Conqueror, you've just taken control of a new country, and you have to reconcile this. And to add difficulty, you can't change the acre or the rod, because that's the base of the entire property system of new country you just conquered. So he does the only rational thing, he changes the definition of the foot. So where 1 rod used to be 20 Saxon feet, it's now 16.5 Norman feet. You escalate that up, 1 furlong used to be 800 feet, relatively round. Now it's 660 Norman feet. Now we come to the Tudors, who are trying to standardize all this. And they have just something that really bugs them in the 16th century. They're trying to standardize everything, which is that 1 Roman mile, which they still know about thanks to the Renaissance, they're still using, is almost but not quite equal to 8 furlongs. And again, you can't change the furlong because it's the basis of the entire property system. So they do the only rational thing, and they change how long a mile is. So 1 English mile now becomes equal to 8 furlongs, or 5,280 feet. according to the 1593 Restriction on Building Act, which is actually about weights and measures. Thank you, Queen Elizabeth. If you want to blame any one person, that's who you can blame. The downside is we have lost the ability to have nice round numbers with our units. The benefit is we can now easily divide our Norman units into our Saxon units, which is of immense importance for our modern day life. Basically, this was a series of cascading bad decisions that were all the least bad decision at the time. Some sources on the page, but happy to take any questions. How many more minutes do I have? Question about the U.S. survey, but yes. My favorite obscure unit of measurement. Well, I picked this for a reason because it's the rod, also known as the perch, which is just this really, seems totally irrelevant, but it's the answer to why the mile is so weird. And it comes back to how far an oxen could plow in 9th century England.
Final four.
Oh, come on down in.
He's got spreadsheets, everybody.
A live demo.
Friend destiny. You can take weight rail to your home in the future.
Alright, while they're getting stuff set up, hi, my name's Ian. We're going to talk about the friend density matrix. What the heck does that mean? Well, we'll get into that in a moment. Yeah.
I didn't even know what exists. Friend density.
Okay, is that... Okay, so, before we start talking about the friend density matrix, I need a few of you to scan this QR code and go and put in a public place that you think that other people should visit. I made a whole spreadsheet that does calculations based on locations and travel times because I had a problem when I wanted to move to Minneapolis. I didn't know what neighborhoods I should look at if I wanted to maximize my ability to hang out with my friends. So, of course, data-driven guy that I am, I was like, yeah, I can make a tool that will answer this question for me. Of course, my version of the spreadsheet has all of my friends' addresses in it, so I don't want to dox them. So that's why you're going to give me some, places that we can safely use in a spreadsheet for everybody else to see. While everybody is going and filling that out,
Live. Yeah, look at that.
I'll show off
He's collecting it
what
right now,
the
yeah?
spreadsheet looks like.
Look at
Here.
It's unbelievable.
Let's make it bigger.
Spreadsheet, look at that.
All right. So we're going to be putting a bunch of numbers into, you would put your friends' names in here, their addresses. Weight is as in weighted average, not, in pounds. We're not getting weird about it. Yeah. Stones.
So is it spreadsheet?
And then eventually, when you run it, it will give us some outputs. Now let's see, have enough people filled out the thing yet? Yeah, they sure have. All right. Anybody while I copy some stuff over?
Friend density.
I kind of had a spot I was standing over.
So density means how many friends you have in a square kilometer? Interesting. I have 4,000 friends on the Facebook. And more thousands on the YouTube. Is it your goal? I don't know. I heard there's a million, but
So let's see what happens if I remember to put a number in there. So the fancy thing about this spreadsheet is that it has some code attached to it that's going to request some directions from Google Maps, and then it will output all of that stuff into a different sheet. All of those API calls take some time, so we will see those results. Oh golly. We might not see the results that we want over here, but don't worry, even if we don't, I made a version of this morning using just a bunch of movie theaters, just in case the demo didn't go well. So when I ran it using all of these movie theaters in the Twin Cities, here's the outputs that it gave me. You can see that it's got all of the movie theaters results over here, and that's all being used to calculate the average travel time by bicycle or by public transit from each one of the neighborhoods in Minneapolis. So, based on this, these results, these kind of, these 10 neighborhoods are strategically placed to kind of give you a sense of like, okay, which area of Minneapolis is the best, and based on that, then you can, choose, I would probably choose, okay, downtown West, Midtown Phillips, South Uptown, those seem to be doing well, so I've run it multiple times, and then those would give me all of the neighborhoods near that. The reason I had to divide it all out that way is because things take a lot of time. Yeah, so if you don't want it to be running all day, you want to narrow it down first. And anyway, so let's see if we got some outputs. We don't. That's all right. Let's get back to the spreadsheet. Yeah. So if you want to read a whole article about this spreadsheet and make a copy of it yourself and run it for yourself, you can go and check that out on streets.mn. Yeah.
I want to
Questions?
Oh.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, how do you weight your friends on the spreadsheet? I thought about it in terms of like, in an ideal world, how many times per month would I be hanging out with that person, right? Because it's more of a spectrum of like friends, family, often to acquaintances, but where do you draw that line? I don't know, the spreadsheet lets you put in like a maximum of 25 people, so yeah. What about your friend who lives in Burnsville? Well, there are buses that go to Burnsville. Yeah, so the spreadsheet asks Google Maps, what's the travel time by transit and what's the travel time by bicycle?
Streets.mn, and there's
numbers, and that's the one that it uses for the spreadsheet. So, yeah.
Excellent. All right.
Oh, three left. Oh.
We've seen math, we've seen history, we've seen theater and science. What's coming up next? Vampire. Woo! Come on now.
Vampire.
Obviously we wait until dark because they're nocturnal. Also, I am a pro. Because when else do I get to show off the stuffed vampire bat? So, I'm going to talk about why vampire bats have been my favorite animal since I was about 12 years old. Because why not? Oh, there we go. Oh, shit. Oh, there we go. Okay. So first, a brief summary of bats. Well, so there's about 1,300 species of bats, which is actually 25% of mammals overall. Ooh. They are the second largest order of mammals, second to rodents. There's a shit ton of rodents, but bats are a second. And funny enough, they are their whole separate order called Chiroptera, which in English translates to hand wing. And I love this diagram. I did a lot of Googling to find a good one that will fit in that corner there. You can see it's color-coded by the bones for homology of 4 different mammals, and pretty much if my hand were like a bat's, my 4 fingers would reach the ground, and there would be a wing membrane spread between them. They fly by the power of jazz hands.
There are 3 species of vampire bat, which are obligate and sanguivores. So sanguivore or hematophagy are 2 terms for animals who eat blood. And these are very unique because most mammals don't eat blood. It's very unique. And there are 3 different species, Desmodus rotundus, my personal favorite, the common vampire bat, which all slides after this will be about because it's the one that's been studied the most, hence the name common. There's also Diamus youngi and Diphyla equatorata, the white-winged vampire bat, and the hairy-legged vampire bat. All 3 of them are around the Central and South American areas, and whereas the common vampire bat feeds mostly on mammals, the other 2 tend to feed more on avians. All of them mainly prey on livestock because, of course, they are most readily available in these regions. They really don't want to prey on humans. They prefer to just go over to, like, you know, a field of cattle with just like a bunch of drive-through McDonald's for them. So I don't expect this video to work, but one of my favorite things about vampire bats is they can actually maneuver on the ground. There are very few, oh my god, it works, yes. So there are very few species of bats that can actually maneuver on the ground, but you know, they prey, there is music. So they have to land on the ground and maneuver to their prey. So, and they also are the only species of bat that can take off directly from the ground. Normally, if a bat is grounded, they're stuck until you hang them from a tree to drop and glide. So they run pretty much by like push-ups, because whereas most 4-limbed mammals generate force with their hind limbs, they are adapted for flight. So their forelimbs are what is generating most of the force. So we have this courtesy of some great biologists at Cornell that put them on treadmills. It's fantastic. So yeah, so thank you, Cornell, for giving us this amazing footage right here. Also, vampire bats are really good at sharing. So a colony is mostly related females with a dominant male and sometimes some secondary males that just like want to hang out and maybe get some action. But so they are mostly related to each other. So vampire bats in a typical night would eat about 2 tablespoons of blood, and if they go 2 or 3 nights without a meal, they will starve to death. So if one, for whatever reason, doesn't get a meal, they will go up to their friend and say, in bat language, I guess, "Hey, what's up? I'm kind of hungry." And then their friend will then regurgitate some blood, and then they'll lick the mouth, and, you know, sharing is caring. So they're very social organisms. There's a really cool study that I don't have time to talk about relatedness and this behavior. So speaking of how do they eat, they don't, you're probably picturing like biting the neck and sucking. That's not what vampire bats do. They have really sharp front teeth that they use to make a small incision in their prey. It's kind of like a crater-shaped wound. And then they have some little channels on their tongue that lap up the blood. And then they deposit saliva, which is full of a few different things. The coolest one being an anticoagulant that prevents blood from clotting, literally called Draculin. Because, yeah, why not? And I'm glad, and I'm almost out of time, but that's it. Oh, great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, this one's named Desro, because Desmodus rotundus. Obligate, someone asked if, Ian asked if they eat anything besides blood. No, they're obligate sanguivores. They have to drink blood. That is the only thing that these 3 species eat. Well, they do have some sensory, like they have really good smell and like feeling to figure out like where the best spot on the animal is to find the blood. But yeah, they do also use echolocation. But I guess yeah, and I guess maneuvering on the ground, they should have pretty good eyesight. I should look more into that. Yeah. Thank you.
Right? Yes. Who's it gonna be? So many. 2 people. Horses! You ready for this beautiful horse girl? Alright, so Icelandic horses. Down, down. There we go. how I learned to stop worrying and become a horse girl in 10 days. Here's a lovely picture of me and my friends riding Icelandic horses in Iceland. Look at the background, it's great. Here, it's great. So they're not ponies. A lot of people will ask if they're ponies. They're not. Hurts their feelings. That's like what everybody in Iceland says. It hurts their feelings. So the Icelandic word for horse is hestur. And before I traveled there, I checked. I was like, I wonder what the Icelandic word for pony is. No, it's hestur. It's like, no. There's no Icelandic word for pony. It's only horses. So they do fall within the height range for a pony, but there's also guidelines on temperament and their ability to carry weight, carry load, and how they're built. And Icelandic horses are military horses, not like ponies. And also children can ride ponies generally, not horses, not Icelandic horses. They're just mother. Vigorous, yes. I rode a horse named Bjork. She was a lot. But I never fell off of her. Here is us at Escaland. So that was horse land. As we're, yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Okay. Are Icelandic horses anti-vaxxers? I don't know. So they evolved from, presumably, I mean, the scientists do this stuff. So Norwegians arrived about 1,000 years ago, and the Icelandic horses lived alone in Iceland, completely isolated since then. So they evolved all on their own, and so they have two special gaits. One is the colt, about that, and then there's flying speed. I don't have time for that. It's like colt, but faster. There's also almost no equine diseases in Iceland, so they don't really require vaccinations. Because of that, if an Icelandic horse leaves Iceland, they can't return. Never. So like if they go somewhere for a tournament, or if one is sold to somebody, never go back home. Yeah, so why Icelandic horses are really sad and forlorn. And also it's kind of to protect their genetic purity too. Yeah. There's also like a registry for Icelandic horses to make sure they're not like inbred. And there's also like an app for people too, apparently. So here's more pretty horse stuff. Yeah, they got an app, and it's like part of a dating app where they just like check and make sure they're not related. There's Callie. Let's talk about the tolt. Look at this. Look at this. There were a lot of really good stuff. So it's a gate where there is always one foot touching the ground, which makes it really, really smooth. Yeah, so I wasn't able to tell if Bjork ran over a dead lamb. She just kept going. Yeah, that's about it.
It was small and scary. Just like some things.
Do you know? I know how many horses there are in Iceland. No. Another question? Jaron. Jaron, I'm a vegetarian and you're a vegan and you don't care.
How's it taste? Oh, that's suspicious. How is that?
There are 80,000 horses in Iceland.
After each presentation, we're about to have a question.
Oh, we're still going to say, well, we don't want Quinn to feel sad.
Oh, one left.
Welcome, Quinn.
What is it? Last?
Some people know me as Gwyn, some know me as Zach, some know me as G, Zachariah. White. I like to collect expensive letters in my name. My talk is called Your Therapist Should Be Able to Pee. I am a licensed psychologist. I specialize in sexual health and gender identity, and there is something I think every therapist should do, and that is to pee. I will tell you what that means. Learning objectives. Upon completion of this session, participants should be better able to name and describe the 4 levels of intervention included in the Blizzard model, recognize therapists who pee, and demand their therapists pee. Shout out to Dr. Lindsay Doe, who's a sexologist, who's the host and writer of the YouTube channel Sexplanations, one of my favorite sex educators. She does a really good 4-minute presentation also on the Blizzard model. She takes a little bit of her tack with candy pieces. Love her. Did you know it is entirely possible to become a doctoral level licensed psychologist and never have taken a class in human sexuality? Yeah. It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah. So much of our life touch on sexuality. But you don't have to be trained. The Blizzard model, developed in 1974, so it's the same age as me. Lovely. By sexologist Jack Hannon to address sexuality issues that arise in healthcare settings. Any healthcare settings. A lot of them are talking about cancer patients and other healthcare settings wanting to talk about sexuality issues. How do we deal with that? PLICIT, here it is. PLICIT stands for P. The P stands for permission. Limited information, specific suggestions, and intensive therapy. It's 4 levels of intervention. It's a stage model, so most things are addressed with the first, then the remainder, some things are addressed by giving limited information, some things are addressed by giving specific suggestions, and some by intensive therapy. In 2007, the model was extended, the extended implicit, so the explicit model. Added in explicit permission giving at every stage of the model. Need to review all the interactions with patients and challenging your own biases and assumptions. So you can do that better. Here we go. Permission gives permission to have sexual feelings, relationships, and normalize this. And in the context of therapy, give permission to discuss sexuality as a topic. And that's the thing I think everybody should be able to do, regardless of how much you know about sexuality. You should at least be able to explicitly give permission to people to talk about sexuality in their lives when they're talking about concerns of their life. Limited information. People may or may not be able to do this. Every therapist should know where they are able to do and not do this thing, if they're the person for it or if they need to refer on. So limited information, offering limited information relevant to the topic of discussion and correcting misconceptions, dispel like accurate information. Sometimes that's all people need. They just need the information that responsive desire is perfectly normal and correlated with long-term sexual satisfaction relationships. If you have a spontaneous desire, that's okay. It's not things like that. Specific suggestions, exercises, things to try, reading materials, specific books, things like that. And intensive therapy, getting deeper into trauma, developmental issues, things that you really need to unpack, spend some time with. Just a few people, their sexuality issues need to be addressed at a deeper level. So my main point is every therapist, regardless of your training in sexuality, should be able to give permission for their clients to talk about sexuality, should feel comfortable saying, knowing that your therapist is okay with hearing sexual information. Giving permission, what might give a person permission to talk about sexual concerns? So things like intake questionnaires. Are there questions that specifically say, do you have any sexual concerns? It lets you know that that's an okay thing to talk about. Even if it's not a concern right now, this is the person who, it's okay to be hearing about that. That's one example. My conclusion, every therapist should be able to pee. Some references, reflection. How is this? And questions. registry for therapists who can pee. I don't know of any registry for just therapists in general who can pee, but I wish there were. And I think everybody should be on it, so it might be redundant.